Welcome back to my YouTube channel, guys. I'm just gonna jump in here real quick before the story time content actually starts. Just something new that I'm trying out on my YouTube channel. If you couldn't tell by my past YouTube videos already, I do tend to ramble and tangent and usually just talk a lot and get off topic. So in this particular incident, when I was playing Minecraft, I actually remembered of a time when I tried to be an insurance agent. It's still Minecraft content. It's going to be less edited with my little, Chloe character that I have for myself. But regardless, I hope you can enjoy it. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can leave them in the comments below. So thank you. Enjoy. I'm sorry. I want your leads. And I don't mean the kind of leads, when you call people like warm leads or cold leads. Jokes for days, people. Man, story time, alright? I temporarily worked for an insurance, as an insurance agent. And I got licensed and everything. That I should have listened to the people on Reddit, to be honest. I did so much research before I became an insurance agent. I didn't even do that job for 4 days. It cost me so much money to take the test over and over and over because I kept failing, but I was studying for hours every day. Because you have to take a test to be licensed, to be a life insurance agent. And that's what I did. I took the test. But see, the test I was taking, a lot of the material, the company, let me not sidetrack too much. The company that I was trying to work for, they didn't pay me. I had to pay for it to get licensed. And I kept failing the test because the material that they were giving me honestly did not seem like the correct material. And I don't want to exaggerate or anything, and I'm not sure if I'm remembering correctly, but I think I took that test about 3 or 4 times. And I swear I failed it every time with a very low score. Because when I was taking the practice test through the company, I passed it. Like I was acing it. I was doing such a good job. When I went, I had to drive very far out of my way to go to a facility to take this test. I failed miserably. And about my 4th time taking the test, I was like devastated because I'm like, oh, I'm studying, I'm trying to get a job, oh, I want to make this a career because it just sounds so great, right? Because the way that they pitched the idea, they were like, oh yeah, you can make like $100,000, and I'm like, there's no way. And I'm like, well, if I work really hard and everything, then I'll definitely make minimum wage at least, just to put myself out there. And I did understand that I would have to call people, but they told me ahead of time that, oh, these are all warm leads and all of the people that you are calling are going to be interested in buying life insurance. These are people that already signed up, whether on the website or they filled out a form or someone went door to door and knocked on their door, and these people already want life insurance. So I'm like, oh, that's easy because I'm not going to have to cold call them, right? And so I ended up contacting I'm not gonna say their name, obviously for privacy, but I'm just doing a bunch of walking around because I'm trying to tell a story. Can't do 2 things at once. I ended up contacting the company, like the recruiter of that company, because I was so upset that I was like, the material that you're giving me, and I texted them because they never answered my phone calls when I started taking the test. So I ended up texting them and telling them, hey, I have already failed my test 3 or 4 times, and I believe that the material you're providing me is not the correct material, because when I go to take all the practice tests, that I'm passing them on your website, on your products that you're providing me to study from, but when I go to the facility and take the test, I'm failing miserably. And then you know, coincidentally, I think that's how you pronounce that word, they gave me a I didn't do that right. They gave me a brand new study guide. Oh, am I not doing that right? Okay, infinite water sources. Okay, I'm telling a story. Anyway, they gave me a brand new study guide, brand new practice tests and everything. And I aced those as well. I almost got like 100 on their practice stuff. And then guess what happens next time I go in? Every single question, but maybe like 1 or 2 was on that test at the facility. And I'm like, wow, okay. Well, anyway, at this point, I am certified, right? I got my license, I'm certified. This was a long time ago. I don't even have my license anymore anyway, but this was a long time ago. And I finally have my license, right? Because I think it's only good for a year and then you have to like retake it, I think, but I don't have my license anymore. Anywho's, and I'm finally licensed. And so I start working through them. I have to sign all these contracts and everything, whatever, right? Well, once I start working there we are. I did the infinite water source perfectly. Once I start working there, I'm going to walk around and find a fox while I tell my story because I can't do 2 things at once, unfortunately. Let me take a sip of my Diet Coke. Okay. Alrighty. Let me just walk around and try to find another fox. Anywho's, so I have to sign all these contracts, which I read what I sign, by the way. I read what I sign, and, it kind of makes sense and everything. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever, you gotta sign stuff to work for them or whatever, They didn't supply me any equipment, but they told me that I had to have a webcam, so I had to buy it with my own money. And so I bought that. And then before I started working, I had to talk to someone higher up to sign this letter of commitment. And it basically states how I have to work like 7/12s. It was something really crazy like that. I do believe it was like 7/12s. Like you had to work your butt off. And even though this was a self-employed, position, they still said that you had to work all these hours. Well, ahead of time, I spoke with, I think, 2 or 3 different people saying, hey, I understand the contract or whatever, but I would actually like my schedule to be this and this and this, just because of how my lifestyle, was. So I'm just like, I would like my schedule to be this. Like, is it okay if, I work these hours? And I got in text saying that yes, it would be fine, and I clarified it numerous times. And then I did a phone call and they said that was fine too. So I'm like, okay, I'm all good, right? Anyway, I start working. I have to, but see, the catch is, which I thought was a little sketchy. The catch is the letter of commitment that I signed stated, like the letter of commitment itself stated that I agreed that I was going to do all this and this and this, and that I was going to work all these hours, even though they told me that I could work on the schedule that I needed at the time. And they said, oh, well, you just sign it anyway, it's fine. And I'm just like, are you sure that's not gonna, affect anything later? They're like, no, you just have to sign it or you can't work through us. Okay, that's a red flag, to be honest. So then I ended up, am I even going the right way to my house? No. Anyway, I ended up working through them. We're signing all these contracts, right, to do business with these people. You have to, not only do you have to get your license to be a insurance agent, you have to sign these contracts to get permission to sell insurance as well. And, the agency I worked through at the time, they did all that for you, but you still have to sign all the contracts and all that stuff and all that good stuff. Come on. Anyway, so then, just trying to get this box. Anyway, so then, later, a few days, I only worked there for 4 days once I actually got, hired on. And keep in mind, I'm a very hard worker. I have a very good work ethic. I do not give up on things easily at all. But this job was honestly, it was kind of a scam, because the people that I was working for, they lied about a lot of things. So the leads, there's like A leads and B leads, and I forgot which one was which, but one is like, these people have already been called like 1,000,000 times. Let me not exaggerate. These people have already been called like 10 times, and they're like over a year old. And then the other leads are like over like 5 years. It was something like that. And I was extremely like upset, because I'm like, I thought these were warm leads. And the actual people working there were like, no, these aren't warm leads. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, that's what they told us before they hired us on. Are these really not warm leads? And like, no. And I was so upset, to be honest. And I was like, well, that's not what I thought at all. And they're like, yeah, well, you know, you have to work really hard and all this. And I'm just like, okay, let me try this job, because, you know, I'm not the type of person who gives up easily. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, I just gotta work hard. Maybe the cold leads, I need to take another sip of my Diet Coke. Jeez. See, they can see you through the windows. He's staring right at me. Anyway, so I didn't even end up taking one phone call, because I was doing some call listening. I was doing some call listening with the other agents that were there, which, like, I'm not gonna, I think it's called doxing. I'm not gonna dox their name for legal reasons and all that. But out of the whole entire United States of America, this, you know, this job that claims that you can, you know, make all this money and blah, 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 they only had, I'm not even exaggerating, they only had about 20 people working for them, if even that, out of the whole entire United States. Because we were in this kind of like group chat and stuff like that, to where you could see of how many people were working, and that's how many people were working through that company. And they lied so badly. They lied. And I was like, what about my schedule? You know, what about my schedule that I wanted to work? You know? There you go. I was like, what about my schedule that I wanted to work? And they're like, oh, but you signed this letter of commitment, so you have to work through us with these hours, or you can't work with us. And I'm like, what? And I spoke with the manager. I spoke with so many people, like, about this, because it was a huge issue. And I'm like, why would you lie? And I'm like, you lied about that. And then all the leads were cold. We heard so many people take phone calls, and they were working 12 hours a day, and sometimes you wouldn't even get any money. And see, even if you sell a plan, which of course I'm not going to dox the insurances they sold, or the type of customers we reached out to, or anything like that, just for legal reasons. But like, for example, just giving a random number, but let's just say you sold a policy for like $100 a month, right? Let's just say you sold a policy for $100 a month. You only get a certain percentage of that in your pocket. You don't get all that money. You only get a certain percentage. And I kid you not, the one person, I'm not gonna say her name, but the one person that we were watching do the phone calls, she literally hung up on someone because they wanted a policy that would not have given her a large like bonus or a large percentage out of that. And so they didn't get any life insurance. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That should be illegal. And like, all these calls are recorded and everything. And I'm like, that's crazy, you know? And the company, there was a bunch of lying. there really was. There was a bunch of lying about the schedule. They're like, oh, well, you signed it. And I kind of figured at that time, it was kind of like a light bulb went off. I was like, oh, okay. You lied to me, and you can legally get away with that because I signed that letter of commitment stating that I was going to work all these hours. So, yeah, I felt really stupid for believing them. So, yeah, and I ended up sending a very long, I think it was a text because I didn't have these people's emails, my manager or anything. I just had the like, it was in Teams. We had to use Teams. And so I sent a very long, detailed, professional, like, paragraphs explaining how disappointed I was, the lies, the effort that it took, like, the money that I honestly wasted, and, you know, and all that stuff. And they didn't care. And then all my manager told me was, oh, well, you should have, you know, brought this up to me at the time, which I did. And they didn't do anything about it. So, yeah, moral of the story, if you ever want to do anything when it comes to being a life insurance agent, please make sure you have a ton of money saved up. And please be careful of what you sign, because I signed it, but you can easily get out of it anyway. Like, oh, and also they were going to charge you just a little bit more on the cake, you know, or wood on the fire, whatever you call it. After like my third or fourth week there, they were gonna start charging me, like, I think it was like $50 a week for their leads, even though they said that they were free leads to begin with. So, and before I started this job, when I read on Reddit, they all had very similar experiences. The people was like, yeah, like don't trust them, you know, like, you have to do this and this and this. And I looked stuff even up for the specific company, and everything they said was true. So just as a rule of thumb, if you're ever going to do anything like that with life insurance, please do your research, and please make sure it's something you actually want to do and you can afford not to work for a long time and stuff of that nature. But anywho's, that was a long story time. And also, I'm not the greatest at telling stories, so that took me literally forever to do. But yeah, so yep.